Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's episode of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to watch the video and spend some time with me. Guys, today we are going to have an old school little seminar on fishing a Texas rig plastic worm in the summertime of the year. Out of all the lures that you can fish in the summertime of the year, there's few that can beat just the old school Texas rig. And it's sort of a forgotten lure. There's so many different lures out there today that have sort of taken its place, that sometimes the old Texas rig gets sort of, put on the back shelf. But guys, it's still, I rate it as one of the top 3 summertime bass fishing lures in the month of June, July, and August. So what I want to do today is I want to give you guys just a comprehensive bunch of tips on fishing the Texas rig in the summer, different ways it works, some of the favorite ways I like to rig it, colors, all that type of deal. I think it's going to add up to some good fish for you guys. Also, guys, a quick reminder, if you guys like the content here on Intuitive Angling and you want to give something back to the channel for the information, best thing you guys can do is just use and bookmark that Tackle Warehouse link of mine in the video description. I put it in every video description, and all you have to do is you can use that link to order anything on the site there. The channel gets a small percentage of a commission on the profit on anything that you buy. So that's a really good way to support the channel, as well as hitting that subscribe button. So I really appreciate that. Okay guys, we're going to get into the old Texas rig. Now, first of all, the thing about a Texas rig is a lot of times on the channel here, I sort of like get a little bit of tunnel vision, thinking that everybody fishes out of a bass boat on big lakes, and that's not the case. There's a lot of people that watch the channel that fish farm ponds, they fish off the bank, they fish creeks and rivers. Everybody's got a little bit different thing. And guys, just a old school curl tail, ribbon tail plastic worm. This is a Zoom old monster here. Doesn't matter, what size. Anywhere between 6 to 10 inches long. Guys, this is one of the best summertime lures. I don't care if you're fishing a pond, if you're fishing a creek, if you're fishing a lake, whatever. What I'm going to talk about here today is going to apply to all that. Now, I don't really know what the deal is with this. I'll tell you guys, the first time that I saw how effective it was is we were on vacation down at Table Rock Lake back in 1969 or 1970 with my dad and some friends, mom and dad and some friends. And they would go out in the evening, right at dark, and fish for a little bit after dark. And they threw purple flip-tail worms, and they had a little bitty split shot crimped on the head of it, and a little bitty gold hook. And guys, this was June, and they caught so many big fish on that Texas rig worm. Or it wasn't really Texas rig, it was just a crimped on, a sinker there, but that's basically the same presentation. And that's one of the first things that I did. Once I got my own boat, my little, 16-foot beat up leaking flat bottom, I'd go down to Grand Lake, and that's all I'd fish was a Texas rig plastic worm, just fishing it everywhere. And that's something about the mood and the personality of the bass. When that water temperature gets over 75 degrees, a Texas rig worm, not shaky head, not football head jig, not swim bait, crankbait, all the high tech, just the old school Texas rig, guys. The bass love it. Okay, now first of all, I want to get into a little bit of the rigging here, some of my favorite rigging techniques. I swear, guys, every time I do a video, my neighbors either are using the chainsaw or lawnmower, or there's a plane going over or a train every single time, so sorry about the noise there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the worm itself and what you want to do with it. There's a couple different colors that I like for summertime. And one thing about summertime, and I'm not really sure what the deal is with it, the bass usually like a darker color on a plastic worm. So I'm going to show you some of my favorite colors here that Zoom makes. First one, guys, is this is a red bug here. I really like the red bug color, works pretty good. And then, some type of a red shad always works good. And then I really like the electric blue. I'll link my Zoom link in the description. They got every type of curl-tailed worm you want in there if you guys want to order some of the worms here. But just try to stay, anywhere between 7 to 10 inches long. Probably my favorite is like a 7 to 9 inch worm. They really like the bigger, it seems like they like the little bit bigger worms in the summertime of year more than any other time of year. And this is one of my favorites, is just the old monster. It's a 10-inch worm. But even though it's a 10-inch worm, it doesn't look real big. It's I catch a bunch of 2-pounders on it. Okay, let's talk about the rigging first of all. For the way that I'm fishing, the way that I'm talking about fishing the Texas rig in the summertime of the year. I'm talking about primarily casting it. Now you can flip it and pitch it depending upon the cover, but what I really want to dig in today is just casting a worm, old school style. And what you want to do with that, first of all, you don't want to peg your slip sinker. Stuff all over my shirt there. You don't want to peg your slip sinker, just let it slide free like that, because one of the advantages of a Texas rig with a free sliding sinker is a lot of times when that, and there's a couple different things here, but a lot of times when this sinker is working along the bottom, the worm actually separates from it. And sometimes I think that the sinker above the worm is like the worm is going after something, like trying to get something small, and it triggers a predatory strike from a fish when it's separated. And then the other benefit to it is, like, when you get a strike and that bass grabs it like that, a lot of times that sinker will separate from the hook and it slides away from the hook, and therefore all the fish has is the hook in its mouth. And when it jumps, it doesn't have the leverage. But if you peg it and that fish jumps with the sinker in its mouth, the fish has a lot more leverage to throw it when it shakes its head like that. So, and another thing about it, I just think they bite it better. I don't know what it is, but it just seems like, you know, free sliding sinker like that is the way to go at that time of year. Now, rigging it here, a lot of you guys that watch my other videos, you know that I talk about using a straight shank hook for a Texas rig plastic worm. That is sort of a high level technique, because a straight shank hook, the way that I rig it, it's a little, you've got to really spend some time to get it right. It falls down a lot easier, and sometimes it's harder to get to rig straight, and sometimes it falls off. It is the best hook to use by far. If you're an advanced angler, you can look back on some of my Texas rig videos about the straight shank hook. But for most applications, and what I want to talk about today to make it more user friendly, especially if there's some guys that are just starting out here, is get an EWG hook. This is the Gamakatsu G-Finesse hybrid worm hook. Again, I'll link all this in my Tackle Warehouse link. And what you want to do with this is real critical on a ribbon tail worm. And I do prefer the ribbon tail in the summertime of the year. If you look on the worm closely, like put some reading glasses on and hold it up in the light, there is a seam on the worm, and it's like a line that goes down both sides of it. And see how this worm is laid out like this? On this side of the worm right here, if you come straight up, there's a seam, and on this side, there's a seam. What you want to do is you want to put your hook in where the hook comes out on this side of the seam, where this concave side of the worm is on the same side of the hook. This way it gets maximum action out of the tail. If you try to hook this worm like on the side of it or on the other side of the seam, the action of the tail it's not as pronounced. So make sure that your hook comes out on the same side as the concave part of the worm here, and it's really going to maximize your the action on the worm. Okay, so rigging it here, I'm going to line it up with the concave side, coming in like that. And again, this is something that's just, I'm not saying you can't catch them doing it, rigging another way, but it's just, I just got so much confidence in rigging it like that. Come through. If you can get away with it, guys, also leave your hook exposed like that. You're going to hook up the fish a lot better. If it's a little snaggy, just, you know, put that hook just barely back in there like that. And then you got your completed Texas rig here like that. And also, guys, make sure the worm is hanging as straight as it can be. Like, make sure your sinker's not all cockeyed. Make sure the sinker's as straight as it can be, and keep the worm as straight as it can be. So just mess around with the rigging a little bit with that. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the meat and potatoes of this, as far as the where you want to fish it. Now, also, guys, before I get into that, as far as the equipment that you want to fish it on, since we're talking about casting primarily, this is one of the times I don't use a flipping stick. Most of the time I'm using like a 7-foot 2-inch medium heavy bait cast rod. I use that Megabass Perfect Pitch rod as my favorite, and I'll usually rig it on anywhere between, say, 12 to 17 pound test Seagar and Vizex fluorocarbon line for the most part. The sinker size, I do like to stay as light as I can go, unless the wind's blowing or if I'm fishing very deep. So my favorite sinker size for summertime fishing is probably a 3/16. Again, not pegged up, but there's something about the fall rate on a plastic worm on a 3/16 that I just catch a lot of fish on it. Here are some things you want to look for as far as just, where to fish a Texas rig at. First of all, just casting it on points is probably one of your top ways to catch bass in the summertime. The same places that the modern anglers, drag a swim bait or drag, football head jigs or swing head jigs or crankbaits, just throw a Texas rig, guys. Get out there. It's so simple to do. Just get out there on a main lake or secondary point, and depending upon your water clarity, if your water clarity is less than 3 feet deep, try to concentrate on fishing that water anywhere between 3 to 10 foot. And if the water visibility is clear, like over 3 or 4 foot visibility, put your boat out in 20, 25 foot of water and try to target that sort of that 10 to 20 foot zone, and just fan cast all around those points. Just make short hops with it. You're just sort of dragging it and just hopping it a few inches off the surface. You can catch them just as good just sort of dragging it and just barely hopping it. You don't have to put a lot of action on the worm. You don't have to hop it like you do a jig high. But that's the first thing, guys. Just get out there on those main lake points, and especially at night, guys. If you can night fish, during the summertime, fishing is always so much better. And a plastic worm, nighttime fishing with a plastic worm is on points is just a great way to catch them. If you're fishing ponds or something like that, you can cover pretty much everything. You're just casting to the bank. So we'll talk, that's simple fishing. So we'll talk mainly about the places on lakes. Points are number one area. Second type of place I like to fish a plastic worm, Texas rig in the summertime of year is on bluff ends. So what I'll do is I'll get on some bluffs. They don't have to be, vertical wall bluffs, but I want some type of a channel bluff that drops off into deep water real quick. And what I do is I start fishing on the bluff about probably 50 to 75 yards before the point comes up. So I want to get on those bluffs that has a point on either side of it, and I'm working that 50 to 75 yard stretch section from the point back. Again, getting my boat out there and anywhere between 15 to 20 foot of water, casting that plastic worm right up to the bluff, letting it fall on a free line and working it, down to 10 or 15 feet. That's a really, really good way to catch it. If you have grass, guys, fishing a Texas rig worm, through grass beds is going to be really, really good, or any aquatic vegetation. Lily pads, gator grass, water willows, lily pads and plastic worms in the summertime are really, really good places. And finally, one of the top summertime structures that you'll ever have for summertime bass fishing is fishing a plastic worm around a boat dock. Boat dock fishing is great in the summertime of the year. The bass live around them because of the shade, and a Texas rig plastic worm is one of the best lures that you can fish with it by far. That's just some of my favorite things. But the main point of this video that I wanted to get out is just throw the Texas rig, guys, more. Just throw it. It's been catching fish for 60 years, and it's still a great bass catcher in the summertime. Sometimes we get so focused on all the latest and the newest and the high-tech lures that are out there because we're saturated with it. I mean, literally, we are inundated with different type of lures to fish, and just an old school dang plastic worm, still is a great bass catcher. It always will be. So anyway, guys, hope it helps you catch a few, and we'll check in later.